Hello, everyone. I am Minessa Konecki, research administrator and allergic person. Uh, seriously, and not drinking whiskey. The Saira says this looks like whiskey,
It
and
totally
every time
does.
and then I take these like giant chugs, and it's like, look, it's noon, all right.
It's
Got to find a
iced
way to get
tea.
through the
It's
day.
iced tea. Yes. My mother used to
Well, I
make
get so
iced
thirsty,
tea.
I have the jug with me.
But here's what's funny is my mom, do you drink sweet tea or
No,
unsweetened?
no.
Okay. Because do you remember how much sugar mom used to put in
Oh my
iced tea?
God, Saira, I could not have imagined having iced tea without sugar for the longest
I
time.
know.
Like
I
I
was
would
like,
not.
ew.
And I don't know when it happened, but at some point it switched over, and I started. Maybe I think I started like reducing it in
Yeah.
the tea because I didn't want to put that much sugar in my body. Like,
Yeah.
because you're literally adding cups of sugar. It's just like, oh, here, let
Yeah.
me add sugar.
Yeah.
And
It's a lot.
so it was so long ago, I don't remember. But
Yeah.
now I could not possibly. If I'm gonna
I
drink
can't.
sugar, I'll drink Dr. Pepper.
You're like, exactly. It better be worth the calories. All right. Let's get started. So we're going to talk today about what does it mean to be a research administrator. And so when I was thinking about it today, Vanessa, I was thinking about like, what was it like being a research administrator when we started, right? So if we
Yeah.
go back in time, right? 20 plus, we'll just leave it at that, years ago. What did you think the job? Because I even remember, because I went into being a research administrator, and then you got hired, and I remember you even asking me like, "What is this job?" Like
Well, because like you know what it was like we'd already been doing a lot of the stuff. So like this is I don't know, we're looking at like early 2000s, like
early
late
2000s, yeah,
yeah. So and we had already been doing the work, the research administration work in the Department of Neurology at the Brigham for a while. Like
neurosurgery.
neurosurgery, sorry, neurosurgery. We worked with Saira and I worked right by the morgue. So like it's like we were in the basement and if anybody ever worked in the basement of Francis Street, we were like right in that area.
Yeah,
And um and so and oh my God, Saira, complete non sequitur. This is going to be important. At that time, the person who worked with our boss to get us hired was John Fernandez. Do you remember him? The guy that you talked to yesterday,
yeah.
he works with John Fernandez for years and years and years. And I was like,
Oh
oh
my
my
god,
God,
I
you're
just
kidding.
remembered that name. It just
I
came
know,
to
right?
me.
I just thought of it. So this is how long ago we're going, and now we're talking about this. And somebody who worked with our boss Mark Miller at the time to get our jobs set up, and it was called program manager at the time. He
Yeah,
actually, I just discovered, is friends with someone I just connected with, so it's
that's a
super
right. That's
interesting to see
hilarious.
that
Yeah.
happening. But like, it was really a lot of finance, fiduciary responsibility. It was a lot of monitoring things. It was the communications because at that point, like, we didn't have Pure Edge hadn't even come out yet, so like we were still doing applications in paper. And
Yeah.
so there was a lot of like running back and forth and a lot more administrative, I think,
Mhm.
support that was being provided at the time, and less finance. I mean, like I did a lot of finance stuff. And so I think when I moved into like the job when it was called a research administrator, I think for me, I thought it would entail more administrative stuff than it did
Yeah.
initially, but now it's a lot of administrative stuff and also a lot of like compliance stuff. And I thought my job was to make sure that the like at the time, and I still do think this, was to make sure that the wheels were greased so everybody could do whatever it is they needed to do. So if you're like a research fellow and you need to do research, whatever you need to do is to make your life easier, the PI, but also mine, and also the
Yeah.
department chairs and the heads. And so it was like, but it took a while to understand what that even meant. So you're asking like, yes, I'm trying to answer the question, but the truth is I don't think that even with the experience I had at the time, or even just falling into it, that I knew enough to make an assessment, and it keeps changing.
Yeah.
So like, what about you?
I feel like the word administrator is so deceiving because I think when you hear research administrator, you really do think that it's a lot of low risk administrative tasks. And I think what surprised me, but this wasn't the case before. So like when I first started in research administration, deficits weren't really a thing, like I felt, and I don't know if they weren't a thing because there was a lot more money to go around. And so there was a lot more institutional and departmental support for research. And so there was money coming in from other sources. I don't really
Hmm.
remember. Or if there just wasn't a whole lot of, like, research was less expensive. I remember the labs I supported being smaller. I don't remember like such big labs with so many people. Um, but I don't remember there being such a high level of risk management and prevention. I don't remember that being a thing when I first started. The biggest responsibility I felt like I had when I was a new RA, which I think is still kind of the same, was pre-award, right? Like our primary responsibility was to help those PIs get those grants out the door.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting to me, I think, about this job is that I think there's always these conflicting priorities, and it kind of makes sense why RAs burn out so quickly, is because on the one hand, pre-award sucks all air out of the room, right? It becomes be all end all, most important thing you're working on. If a grant is due, everything takes a back seat, right? That's the urgent priority. But there's the risk that we are required to manage is on the post-award side for the most part, right? Once you actually get the money in
Yeah.
the door. But we're constantly having to put that on the back burner to handle the pre-award. And so it's interesting because RAs are always in this battle, right, of like balance between how do I do all of these things for all of these PIs that are all very different. Like, you know, you and I talk a lot about contact switching. You know, PIs who may have a very different research, your mind has to like pivot. You know, if you have the industry sponsored clinical trials, then you have to pivot to an NIH animal study R01, then you're going to a K23. You know, it's a lot, and then a nonprofit, right? It's a lot of your gymnastics mentally. And so I can see why, like, I know myself, I burnt out, you know, after doing it for about 12, 13 years. I was like, wow, my brain is just fried. Like, I don't think I just felt like I had reached like my capacity. Like, and I don't think that happened. Like, I never really felt that before. So I think that a big problem is like a misalignment of maybe like the title of research administration doesn't quite encompass the breadth,
Yeah.
how dynamic and, as you said, constantly changing it is. It's kind of like calling an ocean a lake, right? They're similar, but they're not the same,
Well,
right?
it's also like, okay, there's lakes and then there's lakes, right? So like you have a lake and then there's like the Great Lakes, right? Which look
Right.
like oceans, right? So there's also like that kind of thing as well. And I think, you know, to your point, you talked about high risk administrative work versus low risk, which I think is actually really interesting. So I think research administration has evolved a lot to contain both high and low risk. And I was talking to somebody the other day who was saying if everything is like feels like it's high risk, then you don't really have a calibration system. And
Yes.
Ali and I were talking about this yesterday related to prioritization, right? So if you think about like you said, pre-award sucks all the air out of the room. What does that mean operationally? So operationally, if you think about it, if you're somebody who does soup to nuts, which I argue is very difficult to do
Yeah.
in today's environment, but let's say you do, um, the pre-award is always going to take priority because you're time sensitive on that, and you got to get it out the door, get it out the door, get it out the door, right? And the challenge that we run into is that because we do that, we then actually don't do the things that are the high risk. Because like if you think
Yeah.
about the administrative tasks is putting together paperwork, we're looking at I'm not trying to minimize pre-award, but it's a different set of skills
Yeah.
that is,
It's a lot of logistics and
and
organization
I'm
and
terrible at these.
yeah.
There's
It's
a
not my
reason I
fave.
don't like pre-award. It's because it taps into every skill set I do not have.
It's not my
And
fave.
like, and people who do it well, I'm like, damn, I'm just blown away by your ability to handle this. Because for me, I start to like spiral very quickly when I have a lot of pre-award. Not the same with post-award. But if I have both, right, the pre-award kind of you keep having to deal with that because it's the now, now, now.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that the things that are like they're definitely the things that are going to create the highest risk for you in the long run, but they're the ones that you spend the least amount of time on because by the time you've now finished getting the grants in, you've cycled into maybe another month closing, you have to
Right.
patch yourself up, there's a whole lot of things. And so what ends up happening then is that the perspective of the job, depending on who you are, which department you're in, and which RA you're working with, now you may see the job, oh, you're an RA, you help me with pre-award. Whereas
Right.
another person, you know, and you and I have cultivated this on just because it's the part we love about research administration. Oh, you're a research administrator, excuse me, you're my business partner in this, and we're going to work
Yes.
together to figure this out. But that depends on the PI, on the RA, on the institution, on the experience of an RA. You
Yeah.
know, there's so many things now, I think, that come
Yeah.
into it, whereas before we were still figuring it out.
I think that's really the key distinction is that, 20 years ago, I think it was easier to do everything cradle to grave. There was a lot more time and a lot less workload, and the compliance requirements were significantly less. And I think, like we've talked about this a few times, that right when ARA funds came out, that's when we really started to see a shift
Yep.
in the complexity and intensity of the job. I think you like so if somebody was to say to you, right, like I'll answer this first, like what is a research administrator in 2026, right? I think you actually said it so perfectly, which is we are business partners, right?
Yeah.
We are less administrators now, and I think we're much more financial and compliance strategic partners to our investigators to really help them navigate the open sea, right? To figure out how do you build those safety bunkers, right? For when the weather is tough, like how do you make smart business decisions? Because, scientists, what they do is incredible, right? Like, I mean, I don't, some of the breakthroughs have just been so phenomenal, but those all, and even the PIs I've worked with have said this themselves, like that comes as a culmination of a lot of collaboration between a lot of people who believe in the same thing. And research administrators play a huge role in that. And I think that that's, to me, like when I think about what it means to be a research administrator, we are partners in the future of medical breakthroughs, right? We are not doing the science, of course, but we facilitate an environment that is where scientists are able to do that work because we're focusing on the finance side. I think that any business, right? Like I was giving a presentation for Region 5 yesterday for NCURA, and every PI is basically running a small business, right? They have investors, quote unquote, that they are responsible to, that they have to answer to. They have deliverables. They have product, right? They are running a business. They need a business manager, right? They need somebody who understands all of the other stuff that makes the engine work so that they can focus on the science. And I think that's really different because we're also participating in helping them get new money in the door, right? So not really fundraisers, but we're kind of strategic partners in helping them get those applications out the door to be, competitive. And so I think that there's a real significance to what research administrators do. And sometimes I feel like the title just doesn't quite give it the respect it deserves for how.
Well, if you called it a COO of every little business, then people would have to pay them what people have to pay RAs what they're actually worth, right? And and that's part of the challenge you run into.
Yeah. Well, because I also think that, for me, when I think about research administration, I hope that RAs who work in this industry recognize that PIs are very grateful. Like every PI I've ever talked to has always said to me, like, we are so thankful to have a partnership with somebody who cares about what we're doing. And it doesn't matter what it is. Is it orthopedics? Is it, neurosurgery? Is, every single specialty is going to affect a patient someday down the road.
Yeah.
And I hope research administrators understand what a critical role they play and what the future looks like. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I definitely never see it as a job. This is my passion. This is my calling, and I'm always surprised, actually, how little it's advertised, right? I mean, I don't know a single person who's been in this industry who said, I went to college to be a research administrator, right?
It's happening more and more now because, I think that because, more and more people who are RAs are becoming parents to people who are children growing up into research administration.
Yeah.
Also, the way that the job is changing, to your point of the best part of the job is that operational officer portion of it. And I think if you think about the organizations that are going to be successful and this is where, so if you ask what is research administrator?
What is it? Yeah.
Right? It's someone who helps a PI build a research enterprise within within the organization. So let's say you're in the healthcare system and you have 100 PIs, then if you have an RA helping each one of those PIs, not the same RA obviously because that's too many PIs, build a research enterprise. And that means things like, let's talk about what IDCs mean for you. Let's talk about how you apply for grants. Let's talk about the
so
way
much education,
you apply, right? There's a lot of education that goes into it. And over the years, I've had the opportunity to work with investigators at many different stages of their career.
Yeah.
And a lot of them starting out new, and I've been able to watch and see which ones are successful, which ones struggle, which ones, and there's some key things that come into it. And one of it is really imagine if you had a PI who's working with a business partner to help them get more grants, they're diversifying their portfolio, they're spending cautiously, not too much, watching, they're learning good, responsible
Yeah.
habits, then each one of these small ecosystems grows and thrives on its own, right? And then when you collectively bring in the whole organization thrives. But in order
Yes.
for that to happen, you have to first make the decision. This job is a high level job that requires strategic thinking and needs to be paid as I've said, minimum salary for an RA is $100,000. That's my opinion. It's always been my opinion. 85 if it's your first year, and by the time you get to your 18 months, you're at 100. Like that, it doesn't matter where you are geographically, you need to just jump that. But almost nobody pays entry level RAs at that level because they don't fully appreciate that what their training is the engine that's going to make you money 5 to 10 years down the line. But and then I'll stop after this, but because I'm about to go to my four horsemen again, we're so caught up in the speed with which we can produce, create capitalism, make money, and we are on a train trying to live up to this capitalist ideal that ultimately ends up making it so that if somebody's to say, what, you want me to invest all this money here? These people are very important. I care about all these things, but show me where I'm going to see the return on it now. And you're like, well, you're not going to see the return on this for 6 to 10 years, but by 6 to 10 years from now, you'll be able to feed yourself forever. And that takes a bold organization to make that kind
Yeah.
of decision.
Yeah, and I think that, I hope to see more people getting into this industry because I think, like let's talk about the future of research, right? Like what do we think the future holds for this position? Like when I think about the current environment, I think everybody's a little bit nervous, obviously, because there is a lot of pressure in the industry coming from, government officials, really kind of leaning into making changes that are disruptive right now to everybody, right? Because we don't know what's going on, right? It's like 1 minute the overhead rate's changing, 1 minute it's not. It's a lot of turmoil. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that deters people from getting into the industry? What do you think the future holds?
Dude, okay, so yes, I think it does, but I think it shouldn't because I think that this is actually the most fertile time this is the time because my opinion has been, so I've had an unpopular opinion, but now it's actually quite popular. So I'm actually excited. I've looped back around. I'm the hipster but basically I felt like the government is funding too much research. Like I don't like that the government is so involved in the research. I want more diversification. I want to see more HBCUs and art schools getting more research dollars to come up with creative solutions to ideas that we never would have thought of before. And I think that we've been stuck in going back to the Four Horsemen. It's just the way you do things, the way we've done things all these years. You've got your Yales and your Harvards and your Stanfords and your everybody's. And we've just done it that way for so long. And though what's happening now is terrifying, what it's actually doing is it's like digging everything up so that there's a whole bold set of scientists out there and a bold set of research administrators and and by bold, I just mean I have an idea and I'm willing to take the risk and go out there and find someone to fund it. It's going to we're only in year 2 of this really. Like, so year 1, I would argue. So like it's literally just started. If somebody said to you, Saira, if somebody came to you and said, Saira, listen, I want to plant a garden so I can feed myself forever. And I've never gardened in my garden before. I live in New England. This is very important. I live in New England, and I've never ever done any gardening. My yard is just sitting out there. I want it to be done. I want to feel better about it. I want to have all this stuff done by the end of the winter. What would you say?
I would say, well, a funny story actually. I would say because I've done this before. And that's you need the right environment. First of all, right? Just because you want something doesn't mean you're going to get it, right? So you have to, number one, have the right environment. 2, you have to have the right tools. So as an example, when I went down this road to, had this exact same conversation with my father-in-law and my husband, they were like, well, let's go out and see what we're dealing with. So, we test the soil and we get like a hand tool, whatever, and, quickly realize that we're not going to till this soil in the granite state of New Hampshire, right? We are not going to be successful without the right tools. We're not going to be successful without really making sure we have the right environment. And that meant, understanding the environment we were in. What soil do we have? What did we have to add to it? What do we have to take out of it, right? And what are the tools that we need to till the soil to actually get all those big, huge boulders out of it? The next thing is a lot of hard work, patience, and I think realistic expectations. And I think this is key because like I'm on this health journey, and
she's killing it, by the way. She's walking, eating healthy. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm very proud of her.
For 2 months, I've been crushing it, right? And so, I lost a bunch of weight at first, and I was like, yay. And then I kind of plateaued, and I was getting I'm just so discouraged because I'm like, I don't see the benefits of all this work. Well, I invested in the smart scale that would give me more than just the number on the screen, right? So it tells you kind of estimates of your body composition. And looking under the surface, I realize, well, I'm not losing weight because I'm losing, the fat volume is reducing and the muscle volume is increasing. So the scale is kind of like just balancing between these two elements within my body to change how I'm composed. And I feel stronger, I feel better. But the thing is like, you have to be patient with this process, right? And it's not just one thing that you do. It's not just walking. It's not just working out. It's not just eating healthy. It's sleeping. It's prioritizing time for yourself. So I think that just like that within research, I think it's a lot of different things that have to work together that require a lot of perseverance, patience, endurance. And one of the things I say to PIs when I first meet with them is there's 2 questions I ask them. I say, number 1, what was the dream? Mm-hmm. Why did you get into this work, right? What made you think I want to be a scientist, right? And the second, I ask them, how's it going? Did the dream change, right? How do you feel about it? And a lot of times I think what I hear from PIs is that it's just so much work, and I don't necessarily know that was expected. I think a lot of times we think you have a great idea and that should be enough. But there's a lot more to it.
That's how I feel.
And I think that you are really correct in that diversification is the best thing PIs can do at this moment in history. But to that point, bringing it back to RAs, I think people who are thinking about getting into this line of work or who are already in this line of work, one of the best things that you can do for yourself is get really good at finding funding opportunities and also get really good at understanding them. How do you interpret those policies? How do you understand? Because if we're used to NIH, and then all of a sudden we're applying to 20 different nonprofit sponsors as an example, the entire pre-award experience is very different because it's not like it's the same rules for everything, right? Every sponsor is going to have their own requirements. So I think that skill set of being very nimble mentally, agile, and really spending the time reading some of these program announcements from other types of sponsors and really getting a sense. How are their application announcements worded? What are their compliance requirements? What do the budgets look like? How do they treat overhead? What are some of the ups and what are some of the downs of applying to sponsors like that? So I think those are the things that are really going to help RAs find tremendous success in this next phase, is refining those skills that will support them in being able to help investigators not just apply and find opportunities outside of the government, but be responsible and compliant with managing them once they're in the door.
Scientify Research, they sponsored Region 1 this year, a travel award, and they're actually that's their mission and goal is to sort of help. And these are when we're talking about the right tools to use, right? Is that there are people out there right now who are building tools, and I try to, as part of my role as the strategic partnership chair for the NQR Region 1, I try to really find people and partner with the people who are thinking outside the box in a very different way. And I think that that's challenging, right? It's challenging for me. It's especially challenging because I have blank slate problem, right? So for me if I don't have a bouncing idea partner, I'll just sit there and be like, I can't. The answer is I just can't, right? Because I can't think of it. And so I really like it when I talk to somebody who has ideas that are completely different from me that even initially I'm resisting because they feel so alien, because that's what kind of helps to break the cycle of what. And I think that's, when you talk about how to think about things, how do we feel about the future? You said that they say that I didn't realize it would be so much work.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think that it doesn't have to be so much work, but what I've observed, in my training sessions and working with many, RAs over the years who come to me for coaching about this, is that we're still trying to use the same old tools
Yes.
for new problems. And so, for example, I'm going to use this, and sorry, I don't know if you do this. If you do, you're going to like kill me. There's still somebody's using post-its and a to-do list, the handwritten, and then using email as your to-do list, and then also having this other to-do list. Now, there are people in this world who are able to function at a very high level doing
Yep.
that. And then there are people who feel burnt out while they're also functioning at a high level, and they're like, I'm fine, the system works fine for me.
Yeah.
And so it may be working fine, but you may be deteriorating inside. And this, I am somebody who did this exact activity and had to really break myself of how I was managing my task list. And on YouTube, I
Yeah.
have some videos talking about that because I realized that for 2026 problems, this was actually before 2026, but it applies to now. 2026 problems, you need 2026 solutions, not solutions that we came up with in 1998 that were like, oh, this is a really good idea. So think about this. Okay, so for those of you who did not come up in the dark ages, there used to be a form called the a PHS 398 form, which you've probably used at some point to fill out various things,
Yes.
at any point, somebody watching, right? So, okay, so the PHS 398 form. Then they're like, oh, we're going to make this electronic. So we're going to move to this system called Pure Edge, which was a
Pure Edge. That's what it was
Pure Edge
called.
was
I
a
forgot what it was called.
goddamn fucking shit show. Oh, it was awful. But Pure Edge, basically same forms, same thing, same everything, just now in this ridiculous to use process. Okay, great, fine. Then they move over into PDF. Again, same thing. The actual thing that we've been doing hasn't changed since probably the early 80s. The forms are the same. They've just now become PDFs. Same amount of work, right? You have to enter in the same piece of information 300 times. Like now, yes, there are organizations who have systems to system. They have their stuff put together, but that requires an enormous amount of, like you said, infrastructure, environment, and so now the problem we run into is if you don't have the funding to be able to create ease within these spaces, then a place that doesn't have that kind of infrastructural funding is going to flounder in that environment, right? And so I think part of what this shakeup is doing is it's showing how these tools are antiquated for the problems we have now. And what we're going to see is all of these new companies who are starting to fund things and all these new foundations. They are the 2026 solutions to the problems we have right now. And we'll see this shift over the next, it's going to be like a wave that kind of goes like this. The people in the middle, me, I am one of those people. I have to adapt.
Yeah.
Right? I'm 50 years old. I got to adapt.
What are some things that you think, like, because I think that, like, at all the different, conferences and stuff we've been to, I think one of the things I observe when I kind of look out in the audience is I think people are tired, and I feel like people are permanently tired in this role. I ask myself this question a lot, like, what do you do to keep yourself happy and joyous in the work when the environment is just so hard? What are your tips?
System?
Why are your dogs barking so much?
I don't know. And that's why I was like, should I go deal with this? Like, I was like, you're the one who's doing all the things to be happy. Like healthy so you know what? I'm going to actually, the answer is, I'm going to throw it back to you in a sec, but the answer is this. I feel I'm going back to this has nothing to do with research administration, actually. It has to do with just us as human beings. In the last 3 to 5 years, I feel like the hamster wheel that we're on is going too fast. And we are all running too fast. Our spirits are running like 50 feet ahead of us. Our bodies are back here. Our brains are up here. And what we're exhausted from is trying to align all of the various pieces of us that exist in this world. Because we've always talked about work as if it's like this thing that we do. We don't think about the fact that there is a human being existing in this universe, in this world that is currently living under incredibly traumatizing events, and also having to work and live a life. And people are having trouble with healthcare, and like there's a right. And so finding the joy actually doesn't come from it. Actually comes from within, right? Like you have to do what you've been saying, right? You have to slow down. You have to slow down, and like it's hard to do that when you feel like everything's always coming at you all the time. but like you have to make that decision. You will not be able to be happy or find joy or do any of the, it's just not possible if you are running at 5 million miles an hour because your body thinks you're in danger. And
Yeah.
so now you just always feel like you're in danger, and you may have pockets where you're having a good time, but there's a feeling right down here that's always there, or there's a feeling in here that's always there or over there. And as long as you have that physical tether that you can feel sitting down right now, I guarantee you have it somewhere right now with you.
Oh yeah.
Right? If it manifests in everybody's body differently, but if you have that, it means that you are out of alignment with yourself, right? And like slowing down is the answer. And I hate that answer. I hate it. I hate it so hard, but that's the answer.
I think that one of the things I struggle with as I get older, like, Minessa and I just celebrated our birthdays. I turned 46. And I think one of the things that I've struggled with is that my mind still thinks I'm 16 or 17 years old.
Yeah.
And so when my body isn't quite, I don't have the same
so
energy.
mad.
I don't have the same endurance. I don't have the same flexibility. Like, I'm in Pilates class and, everyone else is like, doing all these like gymnastics, and I'm like, the most inelegant, like I'm about to kick myself in the face. I think about those things and I'm like, it's so hard because in my mind, I'm superwoman. I can do everything I set my mind to. And so setting boundaries and limits for myself does not come naturally to me. If anything, it makes me feel very frustrated and disempowered because I'm like, I should be able to do this. And I think this is why I love all those talks you used to give about stop shitting all over yourself. Shoulding, just for the audience, so you can really hear, like, shoulding, right? All right, play on words there. I really don't like that word because when we say those things, right, like I should be able to do this, gosh, we are putting so much judgment on ourselves, and we are inherently saying I am not good enough. What I can do and what my body has served me well for 46 years. I have 3 wonderful children. I'm healthy, knock on wood. Like I have a lot to be grateful for. And so if I was to constantly look at the few things I'm not able to do anymore because I'm in a different chapter of my life, I would just be spending so much time mourning something that it's never coming back anyway, right? So why spend any energy on it? So I think when I think about it in a work context about how do I find the joy, I love what I do. I love this job. It's kind of scary. I cannot imagine, like I wanted to go to Hollywood. I wanted to be an actress. Like I had so many big dreams of things I wanted to do. But honestly, when I look at my life now, I cannot imagine not being a research administrator because, and I think for me, when I think about finding the joy, I love knowing that I can solve problems for people, and I think that's really what it comes down to for me is that I like helping people navigate hard situations and come out winning, them winning. It's not even about me winning, right? I want to see them winning. And I think that for me, it puts a different kind of, it makes me show up differently because my goal is I want to facilitate somebody else getting what they need to be successful. And I feel like that's a big thing is find out what really motivates you. Why are you here doing this job? Of all the jobs in the world you could have done, you ended up here through some serendipity, right? Why do you stay? And I think that's really the question is people need to think about, finding the joy is really about knowing what keeps you here, People could apply for different types of roles within healthcare. I've had friends who were doing research and they ended up moving into different fields within the healthcare administration because they were like, I just don't want to do this anymore. But if you're choosing, oh, hi, baby. But if you're choosing to stay, I would say, why are you making that choice, right? Like, what is making you get up in the morning? What about your job do you really love? And I think it's also about remembering that we're not doing something... we're doing something really meaningful, like whenever I see one of my PIs that's like published a great paper or they have a real breakthrough, I'm like, wow, I kind of helped them get there in my small way. Like my contributions had value. And I think that when we really understand that, like I was reading this paper about, Huntington's disease and like how they were able to, have some really incredible therapies and treatments for patients, which is, this is a terminal diagnosis. It's not a, it's bad. So to actually know that research has led to something that powerful, what an outcome, And I think that's another thing to find the joy in your work is be connected to the scientific community. um, look at what we're doing, right? Read those papers, subscribe to those magazines and those articles to really see, follow people on LinkedIn, read about what breakthroughs are happening, because guaranteed a research administrator helped get that grant funded 15 years ago and 20 years ago, and that grant over the course of its lifetime led to a breakthrough, right? That is now going to affect literally all these patients. That's amazing. So I think for me, just in a more practical way, that's one of the ways that I continue to find I don't let the stress overtake me, because I'm driven by something deeper than just, a job.
I think that to your point, because what's interesting is that, you and I've worked in healthcare for so long, but so much, I've actually benefited from research that's not related to healthcare.
Yeah.
And so I really when I was an anthropology student, I was on a grant, a training grant, and that paid for my ability to go on a dig, which completely changed my life. And transformed the way I view the whole world, right? So and that's all, there was a research administrator, and I tried to find the research administrator for a keynote I did for Ancura, because I thought it'd be really cool, but I couldn't. I should have actually emailed Steve Silliman. He probably would have told me. But I think that for me, when I think about, I like to think about we're, as people, going back to we're humans, community is important. Yeah, I don't even know anymore, right? Community is important. Relationships are important. And I don't often, I'm not, I create my relationships through work related stuff, because that's what I enjoy. These are I like being a research administrator. I like problem solving. I like helping people make money. I like, a variety of, there's a variety of things I enjoy doing. And there were periods in my life where my business was coaching for a while, and I hated my life. I was doing great, but I didn't like I was winning at capitalism, but hating my life. And it was because I hadn't yet aligned how I wanted to show up. I didn't know what my why was, and then I met with Toy Smith, who helped me figure out what my why was, and I realized that going back to what you were saying, is that when I start to feel overwhelmed, that race train is coming, and it's slow down. When I slow down, I think about what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? It's really that I like being part of, I like, because PIs are part of my community, right? We sit, we talk, we meet, we have a good conversation where, we figure stuff out together, we problem solve, lots of dopamine, endorphins are being exchanged, serotonin, this is the stuff that builds community. And then what happens is that over the years, some of my PIs we're still friends with, I still talk to, I see them at, I've come back and worked for them at another time. So I think that because for me, that's how I feel fulfilled on a community level. And then it becomes a thing where if a PI is having a problem, or my client is having a problem, we've developed a relationship that is also community based, right? It's not simply transactional. It's not hey, here's, $150 for you to do X. Here's $300 for you to do Y. And now here I've done it, goodbye. It's I'm invested, right? And what you talked about earlier related to the conversations that you have with these PIs, it's also about being invested. And so I think it's easy to feel resentful, frustrated, and annoyed if the person that you're talking to on the other end is someone you don't know, you have no relationship with, you haven't built any sort of rapport with, but taking the time to build a community around yourself. And what's such a shame is that because we've spent so much time locked into this greed is good capitalism space, even as I'm describing this, it sounds self-serving, but that literally is the definition of community, right? Before we packaged it as serve us in this way or pay you for this, this was just how people made friends. This is just how people lived. It's oh, hey, I'm peeling potatoes while you're making the bread, and then you'll have my potatoes and I'll have some bread and we'll be happy, right? Nobody's sitting there going, why haven't you done this yet, right? And I think it takes the pressure off me when I feel we're doing stuff together versus I feel somebody's standing over me, the nuns in when Sister Monique in Catholic school, she just stood over you and she's I'm going to beat you. And you're no.
Yeah, those were tough days. I'm trying to get my puppy to come up here so you can visit with
my puppy was way, way more amenable. She's very, very old, so she was way more amenable.
Remy she wants to play, so she's kind of doing the dart back and forth thing where it's every time I try to, hi honey, you want to come up and say hello?
So I'm curious, right? So, I've had a lot of conversation the last couple of weeks with people who are, lots of research administrators, somebody says, all right, well, research administration. This is the thing. The other question is like, what kind of personality type gets excited about research administration? Because I think that like, oh, there's Remy, there's the demon. Oh my God, she's so cute.
She's
She's
my
so
baby.
young. Oh my God, you can see the difference in her and Luna. Like she's such a puppy. She's got that Kira puppy look,
Yeah.
whereas Luna's just like she's got that very old, tired dog look.
Yeah.
I think she might be sundowning a little bit because she'll just stand there and like just scream at nothing for a long time. I
Oh, poor
know,
baby.
poor
I know
thing.
Buck is about 13 years old now, and we think he's starting to go blind
Yeah.
because he gets scared very easily. It was like his own shadow. You know, he'll jump, and then like if people are around him, he kind of gets scared and like,
Oh, baby
so
Buck.
I know, it went by so fast, so fast. Anyway, so as we've reached the conclusion of our conversation, because I think we stopped at 12:45, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. So like I think I asked you a question, but I forgot what it was now. So
Oh,
hey,
because I
sweetie.
I got distracted by the dog. You
That's fine.
know, 'cause, yeah, she was over here
Listen,
like
this is why sisters do this. So it's like,
I
boy,
know.
Budley, it's fine. We just do whatever. We'll be getting
Um,
you.
so I think like what I would say in closing, like what does it mean to be a research administrator, right? I
Oh,
think.
that's what I was
Oh,
asking. What is the personality type? So I want to ask you a question. Yes.
okay.
Like what type of person would do well in this role? And then you
I
wrap it.
so I personally have, as you know, ADHD pretty bad. I think this is a great job for anyone with ADHD because it's like always, you're never bored. There's always something new that's going on. There's always some new policy, some new change.
Mhm.
And so I think it constantly helps you stay engaged, which I think is really great. I don't think you necessarily have to be a people person, but I do think you
Mhm.
have to respect and enjoy meeting new people and have the patience to cultivate relationships because above everything else, this job, as much as it's about finance and compliance, it's about relationships. You can't do a good job or feel like you're doing a good job if there's not mutual trust. If you have a PI that doesn't trust you or you don't trust your PI, it's going to be a very difficult relationship. So I think that having some people skills is really important and taking some joy in cultivating new relationships is important. Someone with the ability to manage logistics. I don't think you have to necessarily be like naturally fluent in logistics, but I
Mhm.
think that there's so much organization that goes into this job. You have to be able to adapt and pivot.
Yeah.
You need to have a really good mindset for reprioritizing. I think that, there's a lot of people that when they are very task focused, when something comes up to disrupt them or distract them from what they're doing, they get annoyed because they want to just get through the task they're doing before they move on to the next one. This job is kind of like playing bumper cars. You're constantly getting hit by something that's going to do, and you have to be able to get back on track, right? You cannot let that bumper car that hit you when you were in the, bumper car, whatever that place is called. You can't let that just be like, and that's it, I'm done, right? I'm parking the car and I'm tapping out of the game. Because the nature of our work is that there's always something new coming in that's gonna, suddenly now this is the new urgent priority,
Yeah.
right? And you have to be able to reprioritize without it kind of derailing you completely. So I think, math is important. There is a lot of math in this job. I don't necessarily think you have to be a calculus person. Like I certainly never took calculus or trig.
I failed all the math, so I'm gonna pull full confessions out. Failed all the maths.
I
had
did
the
too. I was not great at it.
Struggle with math 100%. Failed physics, all sciences. So like in school, and the reason
But I
why
think
wanted to-
applied math is very different than theoretical
well, and
math.
that's what I mean is like so if you're someone who's like, well, I didn't do well in school, and that's why I'm bringing this up. I would not use that as your benchmark
Yeah,
because
agreed.
what we do requires that you understand math as a thing. Like you have to know that it's there, but a lot of it is just applying it to problem solving and not that aren't like Jimmy and Johnny both took two apples and a banana to some place. But how many parts does Jackie have, right? Like it's not that kind of thing, but as long as you understand the tools at your disposal. So don't discount just because
Yeah.
you may not have, I did terrible. So,
Yeah, I'm good at applied math. I'm not like, but in a textbook math, like,
oh my God.
not my friend.
All
All
right, so
right.
you're wrapping up. No, you were going to do our wrap up.
Yeah, so I think for the wrap up, what I would say is that, I think what it means in 2026 to be a research administrator, I think you said it perfectly, actually. We're partners in the machine of research enterprise development and maintenance. Like, that's what we do. We are here to be a partner to our investigators to help them get going, get their research enterprise moving, and make sure they are compliant and make sure they can continue to grow responsibly. That's what we're here to do. And we're here to help build the future, right? And I think that's a really important thing to remember is that, an architect may design a beautiful home, but they need a team of people to do a bunch of different things. They need people doing well work. They need people doing sewage and plumbing. They need people doing like a carpentry and masonry and painting and electrical. There's so many different specialties and experts that go into just getting a house from a concept on a piece of paper to a fully finished product. It's a team effort, and every single person in that team plays an important role. And I think that's what research is like, and we play an important role, and I think it's important for RAs to embrace that and know that they're, it's good work, it's important work, it's valuable and meaningful work. That's what I think.
I love that, sister. Fabulous.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. So here's the thing. We're going to be here in a couple weeks again, going live again. Number 2 is if anything struck your fancy, or if you're like, I want some of these tools to make my life easier, head over to sairavalley.com. And Saira has a bunch of templates, tools, and things that you can use to like help make your life easier. They've changed my life. Every time I use a spreadsheet, I'm like, oh, I love my sister. And then, because she made them all. And then 2 is to check out my YouTube channel. So it's on YouTube. You look for Minessa Inc. A lot of the ideas that we talked about today conceptually have some videos in there that actually operationalize them. So like here,
Yeah.
I've got a new PI. How do I have this conversation, or what do I do, or that kind of thing. So like if you're like, how do I actually do the nitty gritty, you can find that there. So go check those out. Follow us on LinkedIn, and be sure to like, subscribe so you never miss a single video. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Bye.
Bye.